All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to, I think it's our sixth session of the day. Um, for those of you that have just joined us recently, let me do a quick introduction so you know who you're talking to and what's going on here. My name is Adam Hoffman. I'm the Vice President of Global Brand and Community here at Singularity University. If you're brand new to Singularity, we are a global learning, innovation, and community platform that equips leaders with the mindset, tool set, and skill set needed to solve massive global challenges. We do this through programs, events, both in person and online with an amazing group of partners all around the world. If you want to learn more, go check out su.org to learn more. And for this session today, we have the privilege of being with Amory Lovins, who is going to be talking to us about how we might go about slowing the contagion. He is a physicist and co-founder and the chairman emeritus of Rocky Mountain Institute. He was the chief scientist from 2007 to 2019 and still continues to work with them today. He's been an advisor to major firms and governments worldwide, mostly on advanced energy efficiency. He's authored 31 books and 660 papers. He's been the recipient of the Blue Planet, Volvo, Zayed, Onassis, Nissan, Shingo, and Mitchell Prizes, and the MacArthur and Ashoka Fellowships. He has 12 honorary doctorates and the Heinz Lindbergh Right Livelihood National Design and World Technology Awards. He's an honorary architect, Swedish engineering academician, former Oxford Don, and has taught at 10 universities. You continue to amaze me, Amory. In 2009, he was named one of the world's most 100 influential people, foreign policy, and one of the 100 top global thinkers. 2016, the president of Germany awarded him with the Officer's Cross of the Order of Merit. He's worked in or around about 20 different disciplines, including medicine, but is not a physician. So clearly you are a man of many, many talents and worlds. We look forward to hearing from you today.
Well, good day. Thank you for having me on this wonderful program. As a non-physician, I cannot offer medical advice. My informed lay advice here is worth what you paid for it. But from a half-century's experience as a transdisciplinary experimental scientist, long puzzled by the unusual epistemology of medicine, that is, how do docs know or not know things, I hope that these comments may stimulate some urgent rethinking of both orthodox and heterodox ways to respond to this pandemic. Let me apologize in advance that after the next slide, which is, alas, my only graphic, we've seen some wonderful ones here, this slide deck is going to be all a text document, preferring all graphics to no words. I haven't used that ugly word thicket style for many years, but today I wanted to use it so that you have a fairly detailed and lightly documented text that you can take away and mull over, because it's going to be a fairly high baud rate. On 11 March, the New York Times published a great chart derived from CDC and The Economist, and it's helping many people realize why we have to rapidly slow the spread of the infection so it doesn't outrun the capacity of our healthcare systems, because then a lot of people could die from lack of critical resources like ventilators and uninfected doctors and nurses. So this graph actually illustrates one place over time. It could be the United States or part of it. But actually, the story of the 1918 influenza was similar, comparing red countries full of malnourished, stressed, scared, and afflicted people with blue countries whose conditions help people become less hospitable to the virus. Now, my core idea today, taking off from that, is to focus public health and personal efforts not just on slowing the spread of COVID-19 by essential precautions that we've learned about this today, like isolation, hand washing, and social distancing, but also by a portfolio of ways to improve the immune and repair competences of the general population. In the mathematics of epidemics, this has the same effect as making the pathogen less virulent so that each carrier infects fewer other people. And this has two main benefits. It first of all buys time to identify and isolate outbreaks, improve and deliver therapies, make vital supplies that we now lack, and develop and administer effective vaccines if those prove feasible. I don't consider that very likely for this hypervariable single-strand RNA virus, unless someone solves the extremely difficult problem of a universal vaccine against all coronaviruses. I fear COVID-19 will be permanently with us like flu and colds, just part of the ecosystem. So our main defense will be our native immune competence. Back to this theme. Now, second, this focus on reducing host hospitality makes the infections that do occur milder and briefer, not just for COVID-19, but for all infectious diseases. And this reduces comorbidity risks that probably dominate COVID-19 mortality. It reduces the currently alarming risk that people will die from triage if critical care resources are rationed. It reduces suffering and cost, and it offers people sensible things they can easily do to complement the valuable but incomplete agenda now officially promoted, emphasizing hand washing and social distancing and isolation. A decade ago, I talked about this idea of emphasizing immune competence with a top NIH official, and he confirmed to me that enhancing general immune competence should be valuable. He agreed it ought to work, but it wasn't in their models of disease spread, and he agreed it should be. I don't know whether they've now modeled it. Maybe another speaker can tell us. But our expert health agencies are not yet mentioning this approach. That is, they advise how to avoid exposure to the virus, not how to help your immune system fight it. With small exceptions, we heard some very good ones like the previous comment about sleep. Now, the New York Times actually began to mention boosting immune competence on 10 March, but they didn't mention it again in two terrific articles in the next 3 days. We'll see how that evolves. The New Yorker and Vox and the Atlantic and the Post missed the point too. And these otherwise great articles like the CDC and WHO websites suggested slowing the spread just by reducing exposure and didn't suggest improving immune competence. 3 top journals also did not consider that a priority, but I think people would welcome hearing the rest of the story that they can actually do something about, and that's good for them anyway. There are 2 main ways to improve our immune and repair competences. The first one is widely, and I dare say universally accepted. It's the list of restorative sleep, tranquility, and stress management. Keep calm and carry on. Good hydration, good nutrition, exercise, moderation with alcohol, avoidance of toxins, and physiological balance like pH. It seems obvious that your health and your immune and repair competence will depend on what you eat, drink, breathe, do, and feel. So shouldn't the world-class experts at NIH and CDC be including these modalities in their extensive online content, advising us what to do about the pandemic? When the Times, by the way, began to mention this approach 6 days ago, they endorsed 5 of these items and left out 3. Now, that article also goes further. It admits that vitamin D and zinc lozenges may help, but it otherwise says to skip unproven supplements, meaning all the rest. And they say to take none a day because this second portfolio of ways to strengthen immune and repair competence is considered controversial or worse, as I'll explain. To be clear, I do think that many mass-marketed dietary supplements are of unknown or poor quality and relevance. Some are probably ineffectual, some may be dangerous, so you will not find me in a standard vitamin store. And I am not making any blanket endorsement of indiscriminate supplementation. I will, however, discuss some evidence about specific opportunities that do look safe and effective. Now, that 10 March Times article says that the National Institutes of Health has cautioned that alternative treatments are ineffective against COVID-19. It quotes a physician that high doses of vitamin C do nothing to protect from the virus, although happily he does recommend, and he's a great doc, healthy habits such as getting a good amount of rest, hydrating, and eating fruits and vegetables. The other quoted physician does not think that any allegedly immune-boosting products had been proven to work, and as we'll see, even Harvard Med's website does not get it quite right either. And I want to make a credit here for an exception of what the Times did say about D and zinc. They were, I think, conservative but correct about both, although I think they may have confused two different methods of taking zinc. Now, other than an NIH National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health posting that zinc lozenges can shorten colds and meditation and exercise may prevent and moderate them, I cannot find any NIH posting that goes beyond the standard Cochrane review of vitamin C that I'll discuss over the next 3 slides. NCCIH unhelpfully says of vitamin C, the evidence is conflicting, inadequate, or mostly negative, as if those 3 were identical. And yet the Cochrane Review's senior author reports that all 21 placebo-controlled studies published since 1970 using at least a gram of vitamin C per day have made colds milder or briefer. And he traces the current conception that vitamin C does not affect the common cold to several zombie papers that he and others debunked decades ago, but they're still very influential. And now it is reported that the LA County Attorney wants to prosecute as fraud and WHO to shut down public claims that vitamin C can help with COVID-19. And also it's reported that Amazon is taking some vitamin C products off its site due to curative claims considered false. You can't tell whether they are because you can't see what they are anymore. But I think that these statements implying a strongly held view of evidence of absence are really about absence of evidence. NIH's National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health gets this key distinction exactly right when it says there is not enough evidence to show whether is helpful. But the dominant paradigm of evidence-based medicine, a great advance, considers only large-scale, long-term, well-funded clinical trials that are placebo-controlled and preferably double-blinded and randomized. Trouble is, nearly all unpatentable over-the-counter supplements lack that kind of evidence, and they always will, because naturally industry and government won't pay for it. However, even NIH's and the Times' sole data source, that is the latest 2013 Cochrane review of vitamin C in the common cold, does not match their paraphrases of it. What does it really say? Spent the last week intensively digging into that. That is the reference. So if you just look up Cochrane review vitamin C common cold, I'm sure you'll get there. What does it say? Well, it's a meta-study, a study of studies previously done by others, and it reviewed altogether 64 clinical trials with some overlap, 29 of whether vitamin C prevents colds, 31 of whether regularly taking vitamin C helps cure colds, and 7 of whether taking vitamin C when you get a cold can help cure it. What it found is that a low dose of vitamin C could cut in half the risk of catching a cold for people doing brief but severe exercise. And the authors in NIH interpreted that as a finding of preventive value only for people in that category. I would have interpreted it perhaps as a hint that larger doses might also help prevent colds in other people using larger doses than what they tried with those, which was 1/4 to 1 gram. However, the meta-study did find that vitamin C consistently made colds milder and shorter. So, like the quote I gave you earlier, every placebo-controlled trial found that. And therefore, the authors rightly said that its safety and low cost could make it worth trying if you wish, and worth testing further. Now, the Times interpreted all that, this is their sole cited source, to mean skip unproven supplements in which they include vitamin C, and that vitamin C's value is a long-standing fallacy and a myth. That isn't quite what I get out of reading the study. Now, careful reading and digging in deeper reveals fatal flaws in this Cochrane review, and all of them are not the fault of the people who did the review. They're rooted in the underlying studies that it analyzes. And I'll skip over here some deeper questions about the basic methodology. So, first issue, the doses of vitamin C are far too low by even an order of magnitude to be expected to show any effect. Even if the meta-study reported dose versus response, which it hardly ever does, the effects of low doses could not be extrapolated to therapeutic higher doses because the way vitamin C blocks cold symptoms and fights viral infections seems largely a threshold effect rather than linear. This is a rather important matter, that ascorbate permeating the cells has to be pretty much at saturation to do its big job of setting low redox potential, because that suppresses the virus. High redox potential activates the virus. And also the other thing the ascorbate does in the cell is to quench, to mop up, to scavenge symptom-causing free radicals. So at subsaturation dose, of course, you don't expect to see that it's doing much. Now, by the same token, with perhaps one exception, the only trial whose dosing frequency was reported, all of the trial's dosing was far too infrequent, leaving the subjects with very little vitamin C in their bodies most of the time. Ascorbate that has been excreted cannot donate or exchange electrons. So if you want to quench the free radicals and set the redox potential, you have to sustain a titer high enough to do that by taking the vitamin spaced throughout the day. And then third, and all these three combine and interact, another potentially important variable, the quality of the vitamin C used, was not reported for any trial, but it can vary considerably. One expert estimates that about 95% of the general market vitamin C is a 50-50 synthetic mix, a racemic mix of L and D ascorbate, molecules that are the same but twist opposite ways, of which the D enantiomer is worse than useless. It actually irritates the gut. He estimates that over 50% of the commercial product, the commodity product, is air damage, that is not made and shipped under inert gas. It loves oxygen, being an antioxidant. He estimates 100% is unprotected from air oxidation, and about 80% isn't buffered. So commodity vitamin C can readily be at least 4 times less effective, you want to be conservative, 2 to 4 plus times less effective than top quality vitamin C, and it may have been used in some or all of these trials. Really hard to tell. So all this makes me wonder, if those 64 trials scarcely report 3 critical variables and their actual values once you dig for them, why should we treat this as valid? And by the way, the results make one wonder anyway, since modest doses of whatever it was clearly helped to cure colds, might high doses actually prevent colds? But they can't tell because they didn't do that. And this old controversy about prevention persists because practitioners of what Linus Pauling called orthomolecular medicine, that is helping the body heal by giving it the right amounts of natural substances it needs, those use specific dosing protocols that they claim work very well. But the Cochrane review was not meant to test and did not test those protocols, as its authors explicitly state. The trials they did analyze used dosages that the practitioners consider inadequate in size and frequency and maybe in quality. So the results of the Cochrane review are not evidence that the practitioners' claims are wrong, as many readers assume. And excellent organizations ought to understand this absence of evidence, which is all explained in the comments posted alongside the Cochrane review. So until this is understood, I think many of our experts will not be giving us the correct science, and I hope you will read these materials yourself and seek your accurate reportage. I would suggest that you start with the review's senior author's excellent 2017 paper in the journal Nutrients. It's called Vitamin C and Infections, where he details a long history of what he calls inertia and prejudices against this agent. Remember, it is his Cochrane review that is the study NIH and the Times rely upon to denigrate vitamin C. But I think the 2017 paper, which is terrific, will give you quite a different perspective. Now, as old dogmas collide with modern understanding, what should we be doing? First of all, realize that oral vitamin C is generally safe, as Cochrane and NIH and CDC agree. It is cheap. Even the best quality that gives the best results costs about 26 cents a gram. It is easily available everywhere, but do shop carefully. Now, practitioners for a half century found that the equivalent of 40 to 70 oranges a day, that is about 3 to 5 plus grams a day of vitamin C, is quite protective against viral infections. And that claim has never been refuted, although modern oxidative stresses may have about tripled that dose, which was said in the 70s. So from these basic facts, I respectfully offer 4 inferences. First, the Cochrane Review did find, for all its faults, that vitamin C, even in low and infrequent doses, did make colds shorter and milder. Therefore, I suggest taking vitamin C, especially more of it more often, should valuably help to slow the spread of viral infections. That should be valuable even if preventive value were 0. Second, since this antiviral option is safe, cheap, available, and easy, why not just do it, especially for the healthcare and other frontliners and the specific population groups most at risk? 3, amid a dangerous pandemic, are you more at risk from taking enough high-quality vitamin C that it may help prevent your getting sick, especially in serious ways, and it's proven to help cure you if you do get sick? Or are you more at risk from not taking it because those high doses haven't yet had the kind of formal experimental test they deserve, and some opinion leaders misinterpret this as having proven they won't work? I don't have much trouble balancing those risks. Fourth, even if vitamin C were utterly worthless, shouldn't those frontliners, high riskers, and all the rest of us still adopt the non-supplement ways that I started with, the first category, to take better care of ourselves, all the stuff on slide 5, and thus boost our immune competence uncontroversially? That is, shouldn't our public health strategy give comparable evidence to not being exposed to the bug and to making any infections shorter, milder, and less likely? Meanwhile, and I think this bears on the credibility of what I've just told you, there is exciting news from the intensive care world. Vitamin C administered intravenously, which is several-fold more effective than oral, in tens of grams doses, as some practitioners have done since the late 40s, has lately been safe and effective in treating septic shock and in treating ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. These are 2 related life-threatening conditions, and the latter is common in severe COVID-19 infections and prevalent cause of death. Respected, by the way, even in one recurrent case that's reported, this worked. And there's an excellent review of this in the expert review of anti-infective therapy, just published, starting to acknowledge this and noting rapid improvement in ARDS patients with influenza A, and calling urgently for proper trials of this use and of vitamin C in serious viral infections. Now, 3 such trials are already underway in China, where 24 grams a day IVC, vitamin C, proved safe and effective in COVID-19 pneumonias. That is, by the way, pure Ellis scorbate, as it should be. And the Shanghai Government Medical Association officially endorsed this therapy on 3 March. 50 tons of vitamin C were shipped to Wuhan a few weeks ago. Hong Kong gives the stuff away for oral. The circumstances of use are, of course, completely different than in oral supplementation, but the underlying modes of action are similar, and safe oral dosing in the claimed preventive range could be of special value for high-risk groups in reducing the likelihood and severity of serious and critical cases. That is, reducing progression to the critical stage requiring heroic IV doses, because this effectively acts as virtual ventilators at a time when physical ventilators, actual ones, could become scarce and cost lives. There's more. Remember that vitamin C was just one of at least 6 supplements I listed on slide 6. Let me mention another one on which there is limited clinical trial evidence, again, because industry and government won't pay for it. But there's remarkable clinical experience. You see, our repair and immune functions are all delivered by 5 layers of dendritic cells, and their metabolism requires specific polyphenolic molecules as nutrients, derived basically from dark green leafies like great apes eat. And if you ate a great ape diet, you get plenty, but on our diet, we get so little of these polyphenolics that most of us have chronic repair deficit, exhibited as symptoms like sunburn. But taking concentrated dark green leafies, supplements with high quality quercetin dihydrate and OPC, 2 very powerful antioxidant flavonoids, that yields anecdotally remarkable repair, immune, and anti-inflammatory properties, including, by the way, several-fold faster than expected healing in a dozen fracture me healthy with virtual perfection at age 72, even though I travel hard in over 70 countries and for my first 10 years had no measurable gamma globulin. If that's placebo effect, I will gladly take it. And of course, I do realize as an experimentalist that the plural of anecdote is not evidence and a sample size of 1 is not convincing. But I do pay attention to anecdote, and I declare this one as informing my personal bias. Now, pulling all these points together, we should tell the rest of the story and start urgently enhancing community immune competence, at least by the universally accepted means, and also by suggesting people may wish to try vitamin D, not to excess and based on blood work, and properly use zinc lozenges at onset. And I would add, yes, high quality vitamin C, 3 to 5 grams a day, more if tolerated. Take to bowel tolerance if in doubt, divided through the day. Now, all these actions look safe, fast, scalable, cheap, and complementary to the essential standard preventive actions. Immune boosting actions, to emphasize, definitely do not replace isolation, social distancing, hand washing, etc. All of those remain sound and essential. But I respectfully suggest that adding immune boosting actions to the existing official advice could do no harm, potentially save a great many lives, and buy precious time, especially to avoid catastrophic overwhelm of the healthcare system. Now, next year, when we may learn that a vaccine is not feasible because the hypervariability of single-strand RNA viruses may make them change too fast for vaccine makers to keep up with, then this would become more important. And it would be all between the evolving virus and your immune competence. And I think we need to hedge that risk. I would like to be able to look back on how adding the rest of the story right now to the initial slate of responses helped to cut this virus's U.S. death toll from potentially 1 million plus to tens of thousands like a bad flu year. I do not want to peer out of the wreckage of society to say, I wish we'd figured out how to persuade people to try this in time. The first rule of medicine, is primum non nocere, first, do no harm. Don Berwick, the Harvard med doc who later led Medicare and Medicaid when we co-keynoted 13 years ago, the annual meeting of his Institute for Healthcare Improvement, paraphrased that prime directive as, when harm is underway, proceed urgently to learn how to stop it and act urgently on the learning. Don also said we need not just know, wait, but show us, but also louder, yes, we can try, learn, and always thank you. So I thank you all for your kind attention, your correction, and your improvement in action.
Thank you, Amory. We've got to find a way to get these slides from you so we can make them available for folks to download. Would that be all right for you?
I think I can find a way to do that. There's one detail we need to discuss offline.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, you have so many good sources in here that I think I've seen in some of the other chats that people might want to go through and go through some of the research that you so kindly did on behalf of all of us. It seems like we can never be reminded enough the impact that quality sleep, exercise, diet, and mental health can have, and then to think about the supplements that either do have research behind them or have low risk of causing any harm, to at least give it a shot. So I know that I will be going and increasing my uptake of vitamin D, zinc, and some vitamin C along the way.
Let's try to get L-ascorbate. The D promotes hypermotility in the bowel and makes you feel bad, but it doesn't do you any good.
Noted.
Which means if you get the normal synthetic mixture of half L and half D, only half of it helps, the rest hurts, and you're getting only half the benefit that you would have guessed from the label dose.
Okay, good to know. Well, we've got some questions that have come in from the audience. I'm going to have you work with my team to get some of those the right ones answered, either through social or as a post later on. So we'll be in touch with you. But thank you so much for joining us and giving all of us your time today.
Thank you. I'm learning a lot.
All right. Well, we'll probably see you out on social and maybe have you back for another session in the future.
I don't use those.
Just kidding. Then maybe we'll share on your behalf to our social channel so that other people can see it. We'll figure it out either way.
Bye.
All right. Have a good one. See ya.
Yep.
All right, everybody. That concludes our 6th session of the day. I saw some stuff come through in the questions, so let me respond to those quickly before we wrap this one up. I want to confirm a couple of the URLs because it seemed like there were maybe some questions about those. All right. So we've got these slides right here. Let's see what happens when I click this button. Oh, that happens. That's better. All right, we'll do this moving forwards. So Nell slides, I've tested this link multiple times. If you're still looking for Nell slides, they are here and has been vetted by folks. So use this URL right here. All sessions are recorded. They'll be around indefinitely, either on Crowdcast or on our own website. Some folks have asked about subtitles. We've been streaming live to YouTube. However, we ran into some issues with their API. So keep checking YouTube. Usually you can add subtitles to the presentations there on the live stream for those of you where English is not your primary language. We apologize for that inconvenience. This was the best we were able to do given the timing. If anybody is interested in translating stuff, by all means, please feel free to reach out to us by joining the chat down here. It's a WhatsApp group. It's a great place to ask questions along the way or just post comments about what's going on, where there's a lot of good activity in there. And of course, you can always tweet at us at SingularityU on Twitter and across channels with this hashtag, and we'll do our best to respond and get some of those questions answered. So last thing that I'll note here is that there's some of these questions that I'm purposely not responding to because we're going to have presenters that are going to cover a lot of these things coming forward. And, Amory might not be the best person, or Nell maybe wasn't the best person. So I promise that I'm looking through all these questions and looking for opportunities as much as possible to get them in front of our presenters. So thanks everybody for tuning in to this one. I will shut this one down and we will see you in Raymond McCulley's session, where we're going to be talking about learning some more about our DNA and how we might be able to go about curing some of these diseases. So we'll see you shortly.